Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking a
categorically,
question. Don't
Mr.
be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You are
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can
No,
you
I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir. I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today and thank you for networking this information. We hope you'll join us at davejanda.com. We are there 24/7 for you with in-depth information I cannot go into on social media platforms on the radio. Why? Because of the choke points in social media platforms and on through the FCC, which is why the content at davejanda.com, which is nowhere else on any other platform, is so important for you. It puts you months and years ahead of that globalist constructed curve that ends in a brick wall with the shattering of your freedoms and your liberties and your future in our constitutional republic. We are there 24/7 for you, supporting our organization. 30 cents a day, $9 a month. You can sign up for a month and get rid of it, but I don't know why. Because the information we provide, you listen to our subscribers, to our premium service content, I'm constant every week. Dave, the information you provide has saved my life, has saved my family's life. We do it on a break even so that we can cover our costs because running a website is very expensive. I know there are a lot of people that get the content on YouTube and Rumble and go, it should be, everything should be free. And you know what? Those morons have never run a business and they've never had to run expenses. It just shows anyone who says that is defining themselves as a clueless moron, and that's being kind. Let's talk about what's happening in the financial world. The title of today's presentation is based on something my dad taught me. Financial paper is vapor, mainly because all kinds of paper are debt instruments, DEBT. There is a counterparty risk associated with that paper investment. Stocks, yeah, they have debt. The companies behind them. Bonds, yeah, it's debt. Stocks, bonds, anything else have debt associated with it? Pretty much everything other than physical precious metals, gold and silver. There is no vapor behind them unless you invest in paper investments in precious metals, mining companies, and the like. Paper is vapor. And the people behind the paper, what about currency? It's a debt instrument. It's a debt, DEBT instrument. The dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, wait a minute. The United States government is $35 trillion in debt. Yeah. I go back to James West, a political historian, who said in the past, we're at a critical juncture in modern history. The entire world financial system has been hijacked by a relatively small elite group whose interests run very much contrary to those of the global population. These are the people that create debt. There is a competition for assets underway, and the ability to fabricate capital at will is the key tactic of the United States' effort to hobble and enslave every other country and its citizens to the U.S. dollar, a debt, DEBT, instrument. The dollar, remember, is created by the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is not a part of the United States government, the executive, legislative, or judicial branch. You can thank Woodrow Wilson in 1913 for giving the responsibility of the United States Treasury in creating dollars to a group of independent bankers called the Federal Reserve that creates money for the government but then charges them interest, debt, which is why there are books that have been written about the creation of the U.S. dollar called a debt virus. Imagine that. James West goes on, it's important that people recognize what's happening. The financial future of the world, and in particular the United States, is being hijacked by the elite. The attack on gold is just one visible element of that hijacking. So, several weeks ago, we had what was called, not Black Monday, but Japanese Monday. Remember that? On August 5th, the stock market crashed, opened more than 1,000 points down, closed, I think, 1,100 points down. And it was blamed on Japan. Well, it really should have been blamed on the banksters that created this paper vapor system. Japanic Monday from Zero Hedge. Japanese bond stocks halted after plunging into bear market territory, and everything else crashes everywhere. So why? Well, how was this all blamed on Japan? Well, because the Bank of Japan, banksters, increased interest rates. And investors did not believe that the Japanese economy could handle it. So they sold stocks, Japanese stocks and Japanese bonds. And when interest rates went up in Japan, the yen, their currency, went up in value, making Japanese exports more expensive, which would cut sales of Japanese companies, and therefore their stock market also came down. And that created a domino effect because the Japanese banks, and they have these paper positions called derivatives that are nothing but bets, are tied to other large banking groups around the world, and they all daisy chain down at the same time. Now, there's a somewhat complicated relationship of currencies around the world. Currencies that have been created by, yes, banksters. And when they create these currencies, they make money off of the interest associated with creating these currencies. So when they raised interest rates in Japan and the Japanese yen went up in value, it created a daisy chain reaction around the world. It's called a carry trade. So let's talk about the carry trade, because you're not, it's interesting. I was watching when the market crashed on August 5th, and I was shifting between Fox Business News and CNBS, as I call it. And it's interesting. They had analysts on saying, well, this is related to a carry trade, but that's just too complicated to discuss, and people don't need to know about that. Really? They should know about the cause of what's really going on? The sharp rise in the Japanese yen to the US dollar is causing a massive unwind of the yen carry trade positions and contributing to the sharp decline in US stocks. So let's do a brief explanation. Many hedge funds in the United States and banks were borrowing Japanese yen at low interest rates in Japan, because their interest rates are essentially zero. And they were essentially not getting charged interest. Imagine that. So they took those yen, they took dollars, bought yen, and then they invested them bought US dollars and invested them in stocks and bonds in the United States. And they were making a lot of money because they had this loan over there that they had maybe 0.1% or something, that they easily could make up in the returns that they were making. And it was essentially a money laundering operation. Well, now when the Bank of Japan on August 3rd, 4th, 5th raised interest rates, the yen became stronger against the dollar. Well, now those traders that did that carry trade in the trillions of dollars, it's been estimated up to $10 trillion in this carry trade that's been going on over the past 8 to 10 years. Now they're in trouble. So so not only must they pay back higher interest rates because they just raised them in Japan for having that money, but the yen they borrowed, they're now facing huge losses because the yen is appreciated. So it's going to take more dollars to buy back the yen that they borrowed in Japan. And their assets here, as they're plummeting, the stock market's plummeting. They're not. I don't have as much money as I thought I did, and it caused a huge unwind in their positions. And they had to sell their U.S. stocks to pay off their loans that were going the wrong way in Japan. Now, they want you to believe that this is just a once in a million event. Really? Because the Japanese government got a tap on the shoulder from the United States saying, don't be talking about raising rates anymore, okay? Because it's blowing up the system. In fact, we need you to put out a statement that says, you're not going to raise rates anymore. No, we're not going to do that. Oh, yes, you are. Because, well, we have a means of making your collective lives problematic. So what happened? Japan, on, I guess it was August 7th, put out a statement. We don't think we're going to raise rates anytime soon. Meanwhile, right when all that was happening, as I've been telling you, all this data from the government, United States government, is fraudulent. It came out that, in fact, what we've been telling you, that the United States is in a very deep recession and has been for many, many, many months. And in fact, we've been in an economic depression, but they paper it over with all these fraudulent data. The data is so bad, they can't cover it over. Because on that Friday, it was announced on the jobs report. Remember, the economy, your neighbor might be out of work. You see all these stores closed in your neighborhood and in your town and in your city. But that's just an outlier. Everything's fine because the job numbers are fine. So they were expecting 175,000 jobs. The number came in at a measly 114,000 jobs. But even that was fake. Because when you looked at the numbers, they had this bogey number called the birth-death model, that they add jobs in. They added 246,000 jobs in. Well, wait a minute. If there was only 114,000 jobs added, that means that there was actually a loss of 132,000 jobs this past month in the United States. And that's probably an underestimate. And that triggered a rule called the SOM rule that says that, well, when the unemployment rate has been continuing to increase over a period of time, that's actually one of the definitions on the labor market of a recession. And when that happened, that kicked off the stock market, along with the Japanese event, plummeting. So, what had happened? Remember, paper is vapor. So people that had paper stocks and paper bond positions decided, I don't like how this is going. Market's down at 1,000 points, 800 points, 700 points, 800 points, 900 points. I better sell some. So that Monday, August 5th, remember, paper's vapor, right? Just in, the following trading platforms are reportedly down, and people don't have access to their accounts to sell their stocks. Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, Vanguard, E-Trade, Fidelity, Robinhood. Do you see? All those people that had paper assets, stocks, bonds, that said, I don't like where this is going, I'm going to sell, could not sell for many hours. But not to worry, that globalist whore, Warren Buffett, he's a little old grandpa. Bull hooey. Warren Buffett is owned by the United States government. And Warren Buffett does what they tell him to do. And in the process, they tell Warren, we'll make you look good. We'll make you look like Nostradamus in the financial world. But you're going to do our bidding. You're going to set. Warren, over that weekend, before the big drop on Monday, after we had a drop on Friday, significant drop, Buffett calls the top his company, Berkshire Hathaway, quietly dumps half of its Apple shares amid unprecedented selling spree of that and other stocks that they own. And remember, before that the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, the same JP Morgan Chase that's been found guilty on at least 5 felony counts for market manipulation of paper assets. Jamie Dimon sold tens of millions of dollars of his stock paper in his company, JP Morgan Chase, which he had never done before. Which brings me back to my dad, Ben Janda. I take you back 25 years. I get home from work. I'm looking through the mail. And it was the end of the month, and there was a balance statement from my 401k. I open, I look at it, I must have smiled. And he was visiting us, and he was sitting on the couch, my mom and him, and he's sitting there, and he looks at me, and he goes, so what are you looking at? And I go, Dad got my 401k statement. He goes, oh. He goes, I noticed you kind of smiled a little bit. That bottom line number must have looked pretty good. I go, well, yeah, it's up. Yeah, yeah, fine. He goes, whatever that number is, Dave, the real number is 0. 0. Now, this is a lesson he had been telling me for many years, but still. He never said the 0 number. That was the first. 0. I go, 0? He goes, yeah. Because that entire statement in your 401k is based on paper assets. And paper is vapor, Dave. Because every one of those assets is associated with debt, D-E-B-T. And when that debt is called in, those assets go to 0. The only entity that does not have counterparty risk or debt, D-E-B-T, associated with it is things you can hold. Physical gold and physical silver. Remember that, Dave. And I did. And you need to remember that too. I acted upon it. I had been acting upon it before then because I had drilled in my head about our family history, going all the way back to 1907 and 1908, when physical gold and physical silver saved our family, when the government imploded the financial system and caused a run on the banks, and all paper went to 0. I have that video free at davejanda.com in the red box. Dr. Dave's Fight for Freedom, for the 4-generational battle. It's based on that. And as my mom, the history teacher, used to say, history doesn't repeat itself, but boy, does it rhyme. Well, folks, it's rhyming right now. You need to protect yourself. The single greatest financial insurance policy you can have. I don't look at it as an investment. I look at it as a financial insurance policy. Is physical gold and physical silver. We have presented numerous guests, experts for you over the years on this issue. Well, now it's coming home to roost. This time it was the Japanese yen. That carry trade problem is not done. They want you to think it's done. They obviously, the plunge protection team steps in and jacks up the market the day after and a couple days after. It's not done. The underpinnings of the financial markets of the world are not on bedrock, are not on granite. They're on quicksand. And you need to realize that. And you need to act upon that information. We've done a series of presentations with Adriana Reed from the Camino Company. CaminoCompany.com. You need, at a minimum, to go to their site. And they have other information there. They're very tight with Ron Paul and his sound money policies and the like. There's information there from Ron Paul. There's information there on physical gold, physical silver. Excuse me. You need to look at that. Go back in our archives and look at the interviews we've done with people like Adriana Reed, Ed Steer, Bill Holter, Rob Kirby, God rest his soul, It's just unfortunate Rob isn't seeing the ramifications of what he'd been talking about for so many years. Don't buy into this mirage of paper vapor. Protect yourself. Protect your family. And educate others of what's really going on. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Stop on by. You will not be disappointed. 100% guarantee. You will be educated and empowered. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.